to the Pulse of Story podcast. I am Derek Christopher. I am so excited today to welcome Jordan Rosner of Rosner and Scatena Films, which is a global film and distribution company. They do indie films, they do studio films. They've been around for over 15 years. Before that, Jordan was, I think, the sales director over at L7 Pictures out of Florida. And I'm so excited to welcome Jordan Rosner. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good, good. So here's my question: if you've got a film that you've already completed, indie film, how do you know whether you should go to a sales agent or if you should just try to distribute the film yourself?
That's a good question. Look, sales agents, there's benefits to sales agents. Obviously, I am one myself, but the benefits with the sales agent really come down to they know the market very well, right? So I know who's looking for what. We also have many titles as opposed to a filmmaker having one title. So the leverage is there as far as they know the sales agents or the distributors know that we have a repeat business. So they, it's just a little bit more, there's a little bit more leverage in that sense from getting more, call it money from the distributor, knowing certain terms to look for
Yeah.
that a filmmaker may not know to do when it's in negotiations. And there is, I mean, depending on the filmmaker, there is gatekeepers and hard to connect with certain people if you don't have those relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how do you distinguish between if something is going to go theatrical or if it's going to go now, is there a difference between streaming and on demand?
Streaming and on demand. Well, there's different on demands, right? So you got
Right.
VOD, straight VOD, right?
Right.
Which is there's different windows of that. You got the transactional, which is your TVOD, right? Which is Amazon and iTunes and cable, right?
Right.
Then you have your subscription VOD, which is still what you're talking about, which is like Netflix and Stars and Hulu. And then you
Yeah.
have your AVOD VOD, which is your advertising, right? That's like Tubi, Pluto, all those players that do it's free to watch, which is a big part of the business now.
Yeah. But and so when you take on a film or you're interested in distributing a film, do you look to have a theatrical release on it, or do you pretty much just go to one of those online platforms?
No, no, every film is different. So there's factors. It's quality of the film.
Yeah.
It's obviously what the filmmakers want. I mean, we try to please the filmmaker too if it's a client of ours. So if a client comes to us and says, "Hey, we really want a theatrical," if we're able to achieve, if we have an understanding of the level of theatrical, because if someone came to me, let's say, with a movie that I didn't feel was going to make money in the box office, yet they
Right.
want 1,000 screens,
Yeah.
we're probably not compatible with each other. But if they were to say, look, I'm not expecting much. I just want to have it in theaters, then yeah, I mean, we could do that. I mean, it just comes down to, is there a theatrical partner that will partner with us as opposed to us having to four-wall a theater and put money into it ourselves to just buy out the actual theater for that particular time. We don't find that to be very beneficial from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing you're saying is how do we, so that's a factor, right? Is the cast, is it a cast that will put fans in the stand? Is it a movie that will put fans in the stand? Is there a hook to the movie where maybe it takes place, like actually I just got off the phone. We have a movie we just sold to Anchor Bay, and we were talking about the theatrical on it, and it turns out the filmmakers shot the movie in a particular location where there's a theater right there in the city. It's actually in the end finale of the scene. There's like a gun
Yeah.
shot, there's a whole bunch of guns going off, and it's actually at this theater. So it kind of makes sense to try to pursue that theater to have one of the screenings there.
Sure.
So you're looking for different angles to market the movie and use to the benefit of the filmmaker. But
And
every movie's different.
and what do you find that the budgets are that are popular right now? What's the range?
Popular in what sense? Like popular in the sense of getting back their money or
Yeah,
popular.
let's say getting back their money and what's selling.
Well, selling it varies. I mean, I could sell $100,000 movie when I could have trouble with a $2 million movie. It really comes down to the genre. It comes down to the execution of the movie. So a
Yeah.
big thing right now in the market, and you'll probably see this in our newsletter because we're really trying to educate our clients and filmmakers.
Which
Uh,
is an amazing newsletter, by the way. I'll put the website that people can sign up for it.
oh, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. No, we're trying to help. We're filmmakers too. That's where we started.
Yeah.
So the idea is to give the education because AVOD is such a big part of the business now, which is that, like I mentioned, the free to watch. And a big thing with the people that are, watching these channels, we're noticing is they want fast pace. They don't want these slow burns. They unfortunately, and I love those movies sometimes, like
Yeah.
character-driven pieces where it takes time to get into the story. It's not working very well. So they want things thrown in their face. So when I'm reading a script or if I'm analyzing a movie, we're looking at it from those and selling a movie because we hear from our buyers what they're looking for. If it's slow, it's one of those things where we have to figure out if it's a really good movie, where do we go with that movie? Is it meant for certain buyers? No, it's not going to be meant for certain buyers. Maybe some others that are more art house. Every distributor has, not every, but most distributors have a niche or have something that they're looking for specifically. Budget wise, genre wise, cast driven wise. But yeah, I would say the majority of the things is that's such a big thing right now is the pacing of the film. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go back to what you fully asked me, and I'll answer it a little bit more clear because I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, I'm not even remember what I what I exactly asked.
It's all right.
Well, let me ask you this though. So if I well, let me just jump on actually something you said. So what's the difference between selling something domestically and internationally? And do you see that international has really opened up for a lot of first-time filmmakers?
So first time filmmakers, let's put that out of the equation because no one's analyzing it from that lens.
Okay.
If it's let's just like maybe we're looking at maybe we can rephrase it to like a lower budget film,
Okay.
like a starting out film.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a good market for international when it comes to these lower budget films, and the reason being
Uh,
is because think of it this way. Let's go back before COVID. There
yeah.
was, and before these streamers became so massive as they are now, right? The Netflixes of the world, Amazons of the world, they really hurt the mom and pop companies overseas. And
Right.
it's similar to what's happening here, So what's happening here internationally is these companies that used to be able to say, I know I'm going to get a license on a particular movie because it's a good movie. Forget about the cast for a moment. That is a good movie. It'll
Yeah.
go get a broadcast deal, allows those particular buyers to spend more money on the movie because they know they're confident they're going to get their money back. What's happening
Right.
now is those spots have reduced. They're limited now. So like let's say they went from having 15 spots to 5 spots. Those 5 spots are more competitive now because there's less spots. So they're now like, okay, so it's not even about the movie anymore. Now it's about what cast is in it, how big of a movie it is. So for that matter, the international numbers have gone down quite as substantially on the MG side.
Wow. Okay.
So all in all, if you don't have cast, and what mean by cast is actually cast is going to get into theaters. So
Yeah.
like, the guy who was on a great TV show for a little while, that's not going to translate. So
Yeah.
that's part of the part packaging that the sales agent can help with is making sure you're making good choices. Because a lot of filmmakers think they're making a good choice because they say, oh, this person was on a hit TV show. TV is different than movies. So
Right.
that's one big thing I had to learn. So what happens is when you go to these international markets, it's such a clear note where it's like either it's going theatrical or it's going straight to VOD. If it's going
Yeah.
theatrical, the numbers are good. If it's going to straight to VOD, it's not where it used to be. So you have to hope one of two things. You have to hope the MG's reasonable for the amount of money you spent, along with that the company is going to actually do well with it. And if they do, you're going to see royalties. So you
Yeah.
got to kind of trust the company you're working with that they're going to see money if the movie actually performs.
Now, MG, you mean minimum guarantee for people
Minimum
who don't
guarantee.
know?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, do you see a problem when a company like a Netflix or a Hulu they do their own productions that there really is no competition for those titles because they go straight to that platform?
Right. Well, yeah, because for them it's not about monetization. So it's like they're not looking at it from a lens like I am, where it's like, okay, I put this actor in, I'm going to see this much money from all the sales of the world. They're looking
Yeah.
at, am I going to keep retention? Am I going to keep my client base? They're just all about keeping their subscribers and getting more subscribers. So it's just a
Right.
different mentality. So their ability to spend is different. They don't care what an actor's worth. They're going to do whatever they have to do for themselves because it's their platform and they do what they please. But that also has affected us because that offer that they're making, let's say to an actor, I don't want to name names, but let's say they're making an offer to an actor that has an average of, let's say, a value of like 200,000 global, and
Yeah.
they're paying that actor 300,000 to be in the movie. Well, that's a bigger check than we could pay the actor if we don't want to lose out on money. So therefore, they might be holding out for these streaming deals because they're getting more money. And they
Yeah.
don't want to saturate themselves. Certain filmmakers won't want to saturate themselves in the market, meaning they're not going to do more than one or two films a year because they don't want to have too much of their name and face around because it devalues their brand, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And how important are film markets like AFM and Cannes and all that? I mean, are they still as important as they were, say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
For who?
For just the film community, for film buyers?
For buyers, no, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's important in the sense. I mean, look, Zoom has helped a lot, right? Because we don't
Yeah,
have to necessarily be everywhere we needed to be prior. But I still think there's no replacement for face-to-face meetings. Uh,
right.
I do think there's value as a filmmaker. I don't personally, because I did it on both sides. I don't. It's a hard thing. Maybe it's my personality too. I'm not the most outgoing person in these rooms and meetings, so maybe for me it just
Yeah,
didn't add up. But for certain people, it might be better. But I don't think there's much value as a filmmaker. I'm there obviously for a job. I'm there to sell or buy movies and meet the buyers and do my business. I'm not there for yeah, it's hard for me to answer that question because I'm not there for that reason.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, when you put on your sort of development executive hat, what's the earliest you want to be involved in any project? Earlier we were talking about financing to complete a production. How early is that the earliest you would want to get into a production, or do you prefer to have something that's already shot in the can and ready to go?
No, I mean, look, that's always great for us because it's faster, call it faster to the end.
Yeah,
The end result. But no, we're not opposed. I mean, look, the thing is, we're a lean company. There's three of us,
yeah,
and we want to be sure we're doing our job, making sure our clients are happy with our job that we're doing for them. So we don't like to get too early involved because it's almost like we're producing it at that point.
right,
We have no problem coming on when a filmmaker, let's say, has a package of some sort where it's like, okay, I've got the script, I've got the director, I've got maybe some cast attached, or I've got some money attached. It's not just a script, here you go, can you help me? It's more like, hey, I've done a lot of legwork. Now I just need someone like yourself to come in and help me package it or help me, call it get it to production with maybe backing a talent offer. And we could talk about that. But we do participate in financing, but it has to be the right fit. Yeah.
right,
Like, we're not going to come
right.
in too early because again, we don't have the ability to spend time helping the
Yeah,
filmmakers get their movie made. We have to almost come on as a last thing, whether it's finalizing cast, helping with the cast, um, getting pre-sales done if it's a pre-sale type film. That's where we come in. If it's just a script or if it's just a director and a script, it's really hard for us to make moves at that early
right.
stage. Yeah.
And then I was reading it, I think it was in one of the newsletters that you talked about how important genre and mandate is. And genre, of course, it's a horror, comedy, whatever. But mandate, I thought, was really interesting because you said that, certain platforms are looking for specific things, whether it's, I think it was like a late night thriller for a young audience or a Christmas movie for a family audience. How important is the mandate? And how much does that change with what's going on at any given time, and how do you look into the future to know what the mandate's going to be?
Well, that's tough because mandates seem to change pretty regularly.
Yeah,
So I'd say more what it is important to know because obviously you don't want to, at least from my perspective, I don't want to be pitching a movie that has no business on that platform. It makes me and my company look foolish.
yeah,
So I wouldn't do that. So from that perspective, we want to do our homework and know what these companies are looking for, and that's what part of these conversations are when you meet with them is kind of understanding where they're at, what are they looking for, what because we are pitching regularly to these companies, so we kind of learn, okay, this isn't working any longer, why and what are you looking for, and those things do change, and it
yeah,
changes like everything, right? They see results on certain things and like, I want more of this because it's working. um
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the best way to answer it. But you, as fast as you think you have a grasp on it, it's as fast as almost it's already out the window and it's moving on
It
to.
changes, yeah. So, like right now, can we go through some of the platforms and can you just give me an idea of what it is that they're buying?
I could try to help you, but the thing is, Gato handles our. So we really kind of figured out where our spots are. Like Gato
Okay.
is really handling most of our domestic
Y-
distribution
y-
and
Yeah,
sales. I'm sorry, not
yeah,
just sales.
yeah.
I do domestic. I'm sorry, I do international.
Okay.
I'm on the international stuff, but I mean, we talk obviously all the time, so I could
Yeah.
give something, but yeah, for the most part, he'd be better to answer this, but I'll do my best.
So like Netflix, for example, every young filmmaker, every young screenwriter, they think that Netflix is the holy land.
Right. Well,
I,
they are the biggest dogs out there. But if you're asking me what they're looking for, luckily I just had this conversation with Gatto because
okay.
he did speak to them very recently.
Yeah.
Um, they are getting more, obviously, they're doing a lot more of their own, right? They're doing a lot more of their own productions, financing their
Yeah.
own stuff. So when it comes to the outside acquisitions that are not studio movies, it's a high bar. They want really quality films. It needs to be able to stand next to their movies. So when you
Yeah.
think of it that way, think of the production value and the cast. So if it's you know, I'll be, it's so, they're very selective. So even
Yeah.
if you have a $4 million movie that looks like a 4 or 6 or $8 million movie, but there's no star driven, there's no real big talent. It's not let's call it what they deem a really quality film.
Yeah.
They won't pick it up. So I really would only say that they're very selective. It's very competitive. And they're not looking at small films. They're not. So it's
Oh,
really
okay.
higher end films. So we're talking about like higher level studios. So I don't want to put a number, but if I had to, I'd say probably 3 million and above.
And I would imagine that Hulu and Amazon are probably very similar then.
Oh, I think they're not far, but they might be a
Okay.
little bit more lenient just based on what I've seen go through. I mean, I think they're not as specific. If you have
Right.
cast, if it meets the call it the check boxes and you have cast, I think it again, this is my opinion. It has
Yeah.
an easier way going through than a Netflix.
And then what does like a Tubi buy? What does a Pluto buy? What is the Roku channels? What are they buying? Because I think people really don't know how many platforms there really are
Mhm.
that they could go after. And first of all, what are they looking for? And then two, do the filmmakers, when they come to you with a film, how much homework have they done that they know that they have some idea where it should go?
I'd say, well, it definitely varies. Some filmmakers have no idea.
Yeah.
They kind of leave that to someone like myself. Some filmmakers do come prepared and they have quite a bit of knowledge. Some is also very off with their knowledge. I mean, it's just they've heard stories that are not maybe either they were true maybe a while back and they're not true any longer.
Yeah.
So I say that is all over the map. But there's a lot of companies buying. It's a matter of do you have what they're looking for? The timing is important too, I have to say, because as an example, this is a couple years back, but we had a Christmas title that had an offer. Our best offer
Yeah.
was a certain number, and then all of a sudden, a bigger streamer got wind of that movie, made a bigger offer because
Uh,
they had a slot open, and
yeah.
that's not the norm, but it happens. So timing is important. So when you are pitching, let's say a holiday film you do want to pitch it earlier than later. So you're not trying to. So some people come to us last minute with a holiday film. We actually just got one a month ago, and
Yeah.
it's like we can't do much this year with that. It's like it's too late.
Yeah.
Although Gatto did just make a play, we just got someone a deal with a pretty good sized company because they had a slot to fill, and it was
Yeah.
we didn't think it would happen in this late in the year, but it happened. So like it does happen. But if you're really trying to like come up with a strategy, these things do matter, and you have to play the timing of it as well.
Well, that film you're talking about that Gatto just got. So you got this film, and it doesn't really work right now. But there was somebody that was trying to fill a slot. What was the budget of that film?
I don't know the budget, but I could say it looked like $1 million. No big cast, but it was really well produced. So I'd say somewhere between 700. As a filmmaker, I probably know they didn't spend that. I'm thinking they spent more
Yeah.
like 5 or 600.
Yeah.
And again, because it's been a while, it could even be lower because of how technology's moved. But I still
Right.
say somewhere in the $500,000 mark.
And then what kind of deal can they get for that? If you want to buy the film, what kind of revenues can they earn from that?
I mean, that also very much varies, but if it's
Yeah.
not cast driven, you're not going to see the kind of money you'd see with a movie with real cast. Like, I don't want to say real cast, bankable cast.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not the right word.
Yeah, yeah.
bankable cast from the eyes of the distributor.
There you go.
It's not me, this is them. But no, it's I'd say that's, if I had to throw a number to you, I'd say anywhere from 20, I mean, it could be as low as 25. I mean, as an exclusive, it could
Yeah.
be as low as 25 to 30,000, all the way to, I'd say you're probably capping around, depending on the platform. Some platforms do really, big things because they know their audience. But I'd say typically you're looking at probably 25 to 30,000 to like 150 to 175,000 on a title that is not with a big, like any bankable cast.
Right.
Yeah, as a
And then
license.
how
This
do
is a license I'm talking about. This is not like the to buy the movie. It's just a license on the movie.
Okay, so what's the difference between buying the movie and licensing the movie?
Well, there's all rights buyers who will buy all rights of a movie, and then
Yeah.
there's people like Stars or Hulu that will license the movie for a period of time. So like if they want to license it for a year, they might pay you $100,000 for a year exclusive, and then once that year once it's over, if they don't relicense it, you're off to doing either another license or you could go to AVOD, you could do whatever you. You're still allowed to go to TVOD, which is your transactional, as long as the movie costs money to buy. The
Right.
stream, and again, maybe this is not across the board, but streamers generally don't have a problem with you having it on those platforms that cost money. But the moment you go to free, it devalues why they bought it in the first place. They want to have the exclusive ability to show it for their subscribers.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So yeah, so it does it make more economic sense for the platforms that they license a film rather than buy it outright because then they're paying for the most valuable timing that film's going to get hit.
And that depends too, right? Because if a Netflix of the world, let's say, sees something that they really want, they might buy it outright. They might not, they might buy it for Netflix worldwide, where they could just do it through their own platform. Sometimes they don't even want it to be exposed anywhere. They want it for themselves. I imagine for a number of reasons, but generally speaking, that's not something that happens where it's like a
Right.
buyout. And again, maybe on the highest of levels, it could happen more often. But when we're talking about indies,
Yeah.
not common, not common.
Well, so let's go back to your $1 million movie that let's say they made it for $600,000, and so you can license it for 25 to $150,000 for a year, 2 years, whatever the term is. What on something like that? I know we're speaking in very general terms. If they were to buy a film like that, how do the economics work?
You mean the platform instead of licensing it, buying it?
They buy it, yeah,
Well, this particular one wouldn't, but let's pretend it's one that would.
yeah,
Um, that would be something where they might buy it for 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, or
yeah,
where they take all the rights, or it's something like an example would be let's use an all rights buyer instead of a platform because it's not. I don't think it's commonplace to see it at that level. But if you're
yeah,
talking about a company like let's say Lionsgate, okay? So Lionsgate sees a movie they really want, they buy it. They're buying typically all the rights. So they're buying
right,
the I mean, soup to nuts.
yeah,
What they're going to do on their end is they're going to either deem it, call it theatrical or not. Then they're going to think about physical, which is your DVD, Blu-ray. Then they're going to think about, I don't know, all the things, airlines, hotels, all of it, ancillaries. And then they're going to think, okay, transactional. They're going to put it onto the digitals. They're going to put it on the cable platforms and then they're going to try to find that license, right? That's typically what they do. It's pretty much like what every buyer does as from our indie standpoint. Like that's the process. So then they
yeah.
get their license on the movie. It'll live there for like we said, 6 months to 2 years usually, and then it'll go to AVOD. Maybe they try to find a second window to make some extra money, but it's usually non-exclusive, and then they're at the AVOD stage.
So if somebody buys a film like a Lionsgate, then they start licensing it to the different platforms and opportunities.
Correct. And there's a lot that happens. So like when a filmmaker, trying to think of how far I should go with this though. So like
Go
some
all the way.
yeah, so sometimes Gato and I will think to ourselves about, okay, if we distribute this movie ourselves, how
Yeah,
is it going to affect the client? Like, is this going to be a smart move for the client? Could we do better by selling it off? And there's a lot of thoughts of why that would be. But let's use an example. We had this movie a little bit back, very talented. We feel like the filmmaker was very talented. We thought he did a great job with the budget he was working with. We were discussing the possibility of selling it to the best deal on the table at the time was let's say a $15,000 MG.
yeah,
We ended up saying we know we could do better. We brought him on. We ended up securing him a $50,000 MG, and we knew that going with this particular company, we felt that they had the leverage because it looked like such a good movie. We felt
Right.
they had the leverage that they told us they thought they'd get a license on it. And I believed that. So we did the deal. Turns out they got a deal with Hulu and the movie
Oh,
went to Hulu. So like they had that ability because they had really good, they have a lot of content. So it's
yeah.
like it's hard to get Hulu to buy just one movie. But if you have,
Right.
if you have a movie, let's say with Al Pacino, and then you're also shuffling in, let's say, three more movies that are good that belong on the platform, but maybe don't have that level of talent, you'll have an easier time bringing it in, as
Yeah.
opposed to, hey, here's my one movie, it's good, no big cast, but it is good. It's hard to get that through.
So on that film, so you get a $50,000 license and they go to Hulu, so it makes more money. Do you use and the filmmaker that you still participate in that, or is it 50,000 your
Yes, no,
minimum
no, no. It's
guarantee
a,
and
it's a
that's it?
$50,000 minimum guarantee, which is basically like, here's we believe your movie is competitive. We evaluate this to not take
Right.
a risk. So yeah, beyond that $50,000 MG, depending on the movie's success, you would be participating in that. Yes. So our filmmaker will be participating in that. Yes.
Okay. And then, the one thing that I thought was really interesting in one of your newsletters was you talked about hotel and airline distribution, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about. Can you just give a little insight into how that works and if what they look for? And can you have an independent film that is shown in hotels and on airlines?
Well, the answer to that is yes, because that's all we really do is independent films. So
Yeah.
yeah, so airlines, hotels are a little different now. It's
Yeah.
become a little bit more challenging, and there is a little bit of money involved that you have to put up for P&A.
Yeah.
But it still could be very lucrative. And when I say lucrative, I'm just saying on an independent film, a small level,
Sure.
every dollar helps, right? So
Yeah.
we don't like to leave that off if the movie is of that level quality that could do well. So hotels, there's an arrangement. There's a few companies that do this. Airlines, what they're looking for, I mean, both, by the way, hotels and airlines, they're all kind of looking for something similar in the sense. They don't want movies that are older. So
Yeah.
you notice on the airlines, especially international airlines, they're not doing what they had. Maybe in the past they had this where it's like tons of content. They're now kind of curating that a little bit more. So they've got their
Yeah.
call it new studio releases, and then they have these, I don't want to say filler, but you get what I'm saying, like movies that are
Total filler. Yeah. Absolutely.
good,
Yeah.
but they're not anything big.
Yeah.
That's where we fall in, right? So
Yeah.
they have to be movies that are produced that are let's call it IMDb, at least from an IMDb perspective, listed within the year of the time I'm pitching it. So right now, nothing earlier than 2024. 2024 would have to be the
Uh,
earliest.
yeah.
Um, they also look for genres specific. They don't want horrors. Typically, some
Yeah.
some airlines will actually be a little more open-minded about it, but depending where you're selling it to. So horrors
Yeah.
are generally difficult. What the best ones are holiday, family, comedy, drama,
Right.
the lighter fare.
Yeah.
Um, and those they make money. I mean, you could be looking anywhere from I'd say on the low side, maybe 7,500. On the high side, maybe 65,000. Just extra money for being on the air in an airline or a few airlines.
And do you have any figures as to like how many views something gets on an airline? Because I've always wondered
Oh,
like who's
yeah.
watching these?
Yeah, we don't get that. See, in that respect, it's a straight license, so there's no like
Yeah.
participation. So it's almost like, hey, this airline is gonna pay $7,500 for 2 years or 6 months or whatever, and we don't get any data from that other than great, we'll take the deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you still see you keep hearing about DVDs. They're gone, they're coming back, they're gone, they're coming back. Is there any money in DVDs anymore?
There is. It's not like it was.
Yeah.
Depending on your appetite for risk, we don't
Right.
like. So I can't really answer this because I don't. We don't play in that world. But like
Right.
Walmart, for instance, there was a lot of people that did very, very well on Walmart, and they probably still do. But you take that risk of the returns. I'm sure you've heard these stories where
Yeah.
like someone's making so much money, and then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of returns, and then that 100,000 or 200,000 that you made turns into 30,000 or maybe even a negative. I mean, I've even heard those stories. So
Right.
like you gotta be careful. But we still do physical. I mean, we still do DVDs and Blu-rays because we're seeing a little bit of an uptick on this, call it new generation of wanting more tangible items. They want things in hand as opposed to everything being online. So we
Yeah.
even one of our buyers who is in the vinyl business is saying vinyls are up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that is encouraging to think that maybe people are going to be more interested in buying merchandise.
Well, I saw one of the stats you talked about in your newsletter that you said younger people, they want to go to the theaters more than want to watch it online, or on demand.
Yeah, Gatto got some. He researched that a bit, and he was saying like
Yeah.
that's the new stats. They're saying that they're more hungry for it than we were.
Which
Yeah,
is amazing.
yeah.
And I wonder with stuff like Cosm or Sphere, how that's going to impact the future of distribution. Are people going to start making movies specifically designed for the Sphere or Cosm?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creative things going on within our industry. I think there's a lot of change happening. Obviously, there's a lot of change happening. Even with the
Yeah.
influencers now and all the eyeballs people are getting and getting and so much content being produced and technology advancing the way it is. Um, but look, at the end of the day, I could tell you with good confidence because I do the international sales for our company.
Yeah.
It used to be one of those things where your key art, which is your, call it poster, and
Yeah.
your trailer sold the movie. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
never happens anymore because it still
Yeah.
does, but those days are kind of gone. So like
Yeah.
these distributors are actually watching the movies for good or bad, right? They're watching the movie and making a decision off of the movie, the quality and how it hits them to decide if they're going to make a play. Where again, 4, 5, 6 years ago, it was like, okay, awesome artwork, great trailer, let's
Right.
make an offer. Not even knowing what's going on in the movie.
Like when you and Gatto decide to go for with a film, what are the three top things you look for?
When we're making a play on a movie,
Yeah.
so so one is the pacing now that
Yeah.
we feel that way. Obviously cast if there is any. Here's how I'll phrase it. Pacing for or call it length of the movie. So if we want to consider this movie as call it um, uh, real estate, right? We're buying this
Yeah.
movie for 15 years. We are thinking about the long term on this movie. Does this movie have legs for a long period of time? And pacing is a big part of that. So we look at the pacing. We look at the marketing, how we feel like we can market it. Because if we can't market it, then a lot of it relies on the client, the filmmaker, as opposed to
Right.
us doing our job that we could specialize in and say, okay, we know how to market this. We know we're gonna make money with this. Other
Yeah.
times we tell them, and we're very transparent with our clients. We tell them sometimes like, look, there's not much of a play here. You don't have the cash for us to spend money with PR. And I don't see anything happening on from interviews and stuff with your talent because they've never done anything. So then it
Yeah.
kind of comes like, here's how we're going to do this. We're gonna focus on beating the algorithms on these platforms. Because if we beat the algorithms, then it's not going to be just chasing people to rent your movie. It's going to start picking up its own growth because eyeballs will be
Right.
seen without having to push on our own. That's always the objective is to get the eyeballs on it to a point where you don't have to do that anymore. You can actually sit back and see it start making its own rounds.
Yeah.
Um, but those are really the two biggest things: is the marketing aspect, like the marketing strategy. Do we see a play, and the pacing? But
And
if you look at our filmography, though, you'll see when it comes to distribution, we are pretty much all over the place. We do dramas and we do horrors and we do all in between. So we're not really selective in that sense. But we want good films and we want filmmakers that
yeah.
we believe are talented that we could work with repeated. We want repeated business. We're not looking for one-offs.
Well, I get the sense that you guys are very optimistic about film. I think that you guys are very optimistic as to how many platforms there are that something could be distributed on. And I think that's a great message for people that sometimes, because you hear so much negativity about the TV industry and the film industry. But I think people sometimes don't realize how many platforms there are that they can reach on.
It's a tough business, but
Yeah.
it's a business like any other business in the sense where you have to make the right decisions. And here's a great example. Because I did it myself, so I saw the answer. So we did a movie called The Sands back in like 2015. It was a horror film, creature feature. This was our second or third movie that we made on our own, and
Yeah.
we did it for a very low amount of money. I think the whole budget was maybe 275. And we shot it, we did it, we released it, and creature features work. People still rent it, people still like it. It's and 10 years later, they're still renting it. So I think that you have to see it from that lens too, like what you're making. Like if you
Right,
make that award-winning drama, yeah, you might win some awards. Hopefully, you win some awards. But typically, as sad as it sounds, a lot of people don't watch those. So
right.
they don't make money. I mean, it's crazy. So like those movies, as much as I grew up watching those movies and wanting to make those movies, I'm scared of those movies because
Yeah.
they get usually burned.
Would you say horror films are the most profitable genre
That in action, yeah, I would.
in action?
Yeah.
And then like where does comedy go into it?
Comedies are very difficult
Yeah,
because language usually doesn't translate, or comedy doesn't translate usually. It depends what kind of comedy it is. So like
yeah,
again, if you have Steve Carell, yeah, your comedy is going to travel and be okay. But if you have, let's say, a lower level comedian who is really centered in North America and no one really knows him outside, like he's let's say, a stand-up comic, but he's popular overseas, he won't move the needle. So
yeah,
you got to be careful with those movies. So what I tell people that are doing comedy is either you go for that big name or you keep that budget low, or
right.
or you have a deal with a streamer inside the states that will actually call it lower that exposure down to a point where because you're not going to be able to recoup much internationally on something like that. And for the most part, every movie, some movies
Yeah.
are outliers, but typically speaking, no.
And I just want to close on this. So, Jordan, if I email you, let's say I'm a filmmaker and I've produced $100,000 action film that it's really well shot. It's got a no name cast, and I email you. What is the process that I would go through to be in touch with you, and what would you ask for, and how does that play out?
So first, we'd have to analyze it from a sales or distribution angle, right? And if the filmmaker comes to us specifically saying, "I want you to distribute this film," then that obviously answers the question. So we have to look at it from that perspective. So we'll
Yeah,
watch it. Either myself, Zach, Gato, one of us, if not two of us, will watch it to get a feeling of is this a good fit for us?
yeah,
If it is a good, let's just go down. If it's not, then obviously you know what that means. If it
yeah,
is a good fit, then there's a few things that'll happen. One is we'll hop on up. We would want to set up a call to discuss the filmmaker's expectations because we find that to be very important.
yeah.
We want to know what they're thinking, just understand more about from their perspective, what they're looking for. If there's a match there, then we would send them terms of like what we believe we could do with it, and we'll be very clear with that. And it's a back and forth, maybe or not. Maybe it's agreed upon immediately, and then we go to long form. And once a contract's signed, we're pretty much going to onboard them with getting all their deliverables prepared with them, obviously, making sure they have everything they need from where we're sitting, and then we're just setting a release date and going according to the agreement and the strategy we came up with.
Now, do you just want to watch the movie first, or do you want anything that goes along with it? Do you want cast bios? Do you want to,
Not
you,
so
you
much that,
know,
but I do. If there's a deck, great.
yeah,
I don't need cast bios so much because I'll do my homework on the cast myself. But it would be good to have a deck. That could shed some light on something that I wouldn't see.
yeah,
Um, Trailer and artwork. It is a good question. We would prefer to see a trailer and artwork as well because those are marketing materials to begin with. Not saying that it has to be the final because we may even want to do our own.
yeah,
But it's nice to have a full picture of what they do have so we could
yeah,
assess it a little bit easier. It'll be because here's a way I tell people if you have these things and we're distributing it and we like what you have, then we could also put more money towards the marketing of the movie as opposed to having to put these other pieces together. So the
right.
more, if we allocate a certain amount of money to a movie, we're flexible to some extent, but if the filmmaker needs a whole bunch of things done, then we're limiting ourselves with what we could do for actual ROI.
Yeah.
So that's what I always say. Let's be careful with how we're spending our money.
And do you find that filmmakers are pretty realistic with what their expectations are?
It depends. Some are, some aren't. I do think that at least my conversations, for the most part, I find that even the filmmakers who are, let's say, had a lot higher expectations, they're not so ready to jump onto anything, right? So they do their
Right.
homework, which I think is great. They go do their homework, and sometimes those same filmmakers will come back to us and say, "Okay, I realize you guys you're in the same world as a lot of these other people I'm talking to. Like, so like we have a further conversation because I think sometimes it hits them like a ton of bricks. You know, like
Yeah.
they made this movie for let's say 800 grand, and in their heads they're like, this is like a Netflix movie. It's hard for
Yeah.
me to tell them like, look, this is an uphill battle. Like this is a movie that I could offer you $15,000 for, and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a big hit to them, but I think the filmmakers that are strong and like want to make sure that let's put it this way, accurate information, they'll go find out more from more people. And look, maybe there's someone out there that could offer them a hell of a lot more. I don't know, but I know that in general, I'd like to believe if we're feeling that way, most of our competitors are also.
Right.
So it's just a matter of getting that education. I always tell people, go out and do your homework. Go talk to more people. If you're not ready to commit to anything, don't. Go out and do your homework and then come back to me if you want to continue a conversation where we can dial in a little bit more. Because if someone's got their heads up there and I'm down here, we're never,
Yeah.
no matter what I say, it's never gonna matter. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jordan, this has been incredible and an amazing amount of information. And you really sort of demystified a lot of, even for me, you demystified a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Pulse of Story podcast.
Sure, that was my pleasure.
And then, of course, you got to check out the newsletter, below the line newsletter. Put the website along the screen. It's unbelievable how much great information is in there. And just even if you're not a filmmaker, the amount that you'll learn about the industry, it's really, really valuable.
I
So
appreciate
you definitely want to check that out. So thank you for joining us. I'm Derek Christopher for the Pulse of Story podcast. And the great Jordan Rosner has been joining us as a guest today. And we'll see you next time.
it. All right, take care, Derek. Thanks.